And the record will show that 1, 2, 3, 4, Steve 5, and I know Rob Wurge is on the Zoom, so all 6 of us are here. 4 in person, 2 virtually. Was that? Oh, okay, that's fine. And so the next item on the agenda is approval of October 24 special meeting minutes, October 24. Does somebody want to make a motion to approve those minutes?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, so Larry has the motion. Anybody want to second that?
Rob Man, I'll second it.
Rod Man's going to second. Any changes to those minutes? Any changes to those minutes? Dottie, I was gonna say, you're correct. You said, under Board of Finance member comments, you said that's when I arrived. It's true because I'd written down the wrong time. I put down 7. And thankfully, Bill Steglitz sent me a text message saying, "Are you coming?" Because we always meet at 7. So I jumped in after the vote was taken. But so it's true. It says, Aaron McGarry joined the meeting as it was underway, but did not vote on the question. Could you say that I did not vote because I arrived after the vote was taken? Because I just don't want someone to think that I showed up late and I was here in time for the vote and then refused to vote. I wouldn't want people to think that. But if I arrived after the vote was taken, which is bad enough, at least it means that I didn't refuse to vote. Anything else? Any other changes? Okay. All in favor of accepting the minutes with those changes signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone
Aye.
opposed? Anyone opposed? Anyone abstained? All right, this one carries 6-0. So then we move on to the minutes of November 17, the regular monthly meeting minutes of November 17. Does somebody want to make a motion to accept those minutes?
That's so moved.
Okay, so Dave's got the motion and what, Larry's got the second?
Yes.
Any changes to these minutes? Any changes to these minutes? Okay, hearing none, all in favor of accepting the minutes as presented signify by saying aye.
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 Anyone else? Okay, anyone opposed? And anyone abstain?
Rob Wurge abstains.
Oh, Rob Wurge abstains?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So am I correct to say that's 5 yes and 1 abstention? Everybody is okay with that? All right, so that's 5 yes and 1 abstention. Rob Wurge abstains. Okay, so we'll move on to correspondence, tax collectors November report. I did recall seeing that. I hope everybody has got a chance to see that. Is there any other correspondence that we're missing here that we should capture? Anything else? Okay, then we'll move on to citizens' comments. Any citizen have a comment at this time? Any citizens' comments? Either in person or on the Zoom. All right, then we'll move on to Selectmen's update for Selectman Amy Sainaj. Welcome, Amy.
Good evening, everyone. I thought I would begin this evening with an update in regard to Putnam EMS and their service to the town of Thompson. They are performing very well as a service for Thompson. For October, there were 82 calls. The average time from the tone out to the arrival on scene was 10 minutes and 33 seconds. In November, there were 75 calls and the average time was 9 minutes and 43 seconds. There continues to be almost no mutual aid from other ambulance services. Let's see, and the additional news that we received yesterday is that Putnam EMS will be fully dispatched by QV Dispatch starting January 1. So as it is now, the Special Services District that Putnam EMS is in charge of is dispatched through the Putnam Police Department. And that gives us the inability to really track the calls within Putnam and who's responding, et cetera. So them switching over, which was the plan from the beginning, that Putnam EMS switching over to QV Dispatch will give us a better picture of how they're performing for both the town of Putnam and the town of Thompson. Let's see. Secondly, survey work is complete at the salt storage facility site / public safety facility. A site walk is planned with the engineers for early January. see, the Board of Selectmen adopted a resolution to move to town meeting and referendum for the school HVAC project. If you're not aware, the school is currently attempting to get a grant to assist in the cost of the HVAC project. The reimbursement is 68.2%, but we had to guarantee to submit the grant that we would go to referendum before January 31st to get the voter approval on the entire project. So on Tuesday, during our Board of Selectmen meeting, December 20th, we will be discussing and voting on the legal notice to hold the town meeting and referendum on January 18th and 31st respectively. And lastly, we still have the ad hoc committee working to discuss safety measures at the school. The Board of Education unanimously did not lend support towards a fully armed safety team at the school or armed security officers at the school. So that puts it back at the ad hoc committee to discuss potential of a resident trooper and potentially going to the voters to see if there's an interest for that. And that's all I have.
Questions for the first selectman?
Yes,
Go ahead.
I just question the fact that we're dealing with an expense here without the approval of the Board of Finance.
What
Talking about the
expense?
HVAC.
Well, I would think that the voters have more power than. the Board of
Doesn't go to the
Finance.
voters until the Board of Finance approves it.
I believe that's the case, but
Okay.
could we do a special meeting to give you the authorization to? Because if we wait until the regular meeting in January, that's too late.
Right,
But if we do a special
We-
meeting by Zoom,
yeah, we
We can
had
get this
30
thing out of
days
here.
because it involves potential,
totally get it.
we have to get it published before the end of the month.
Yep.
So,
Totally get it. That you gotta move in order to get whatever the reimbursement is.
well, just to apply for the grant,
Just apply. Okay.
so.
Yeah, but if we're going, is the referendum on approval of the HVAC grant and the expenditure thereof? Or are you seeking permission from the community, the taxpayers, to apply for the grant? There are two different things here.
It's.
It's
Is
an
it,
approval of the project.
it's usually the total amount goes to referendum. And then they, in that, it says that the grant, they're gonna try to get a grant.
Well, but to Dave's point,
We can,
is this town meeting and referendum to authorize the town to apply for the grant? Or is it to authorize the town to do the project and spend the money?
To do the project and bond for the money.
Yep.
right,
And that's.
So then that,
that's-
yeah, let's do a Board of Finance just to make sure.
okay,
I'm not sure we can do that in 30 days because you've got a bonding situation to deal with.
well, the 30 days is the legal notice. The legal notice has to be published 30 clear days from the date of the referendum, so it would have to be. published
When
by
is the,
December 30th.
when does the
Okay.
grant have to be in?
So we just have to have a special
The
meeting.
grant is,
Grant is it.
we had to,
We have to do the resolution.
we had to be able to represent that we would have the referendum before January or by January 31st.
They were,
In order to apply for the grant, which has already been applied for.
Okay, but then there's, before we can go, what you, I think we're saying is, we're asking for permission to bond for the total amount
Right.
with a 68%
reimbursed.
reimbursement.
Right.
Yeah, that has to go through the bonding council. If I'm correct.
Well, I would think that's a Board of Finance. And just to make sure. we
Because
should
there
do a
is-
special and
as-
and
As
vote
with
on
the
it.
last bond, there were items that were not included
Mhm.
because they was, I think it was legal fees, if I recall correctly.
It's no different than anything, just like when we did the gates at the school, it's the same thing.
Right, exactly.
You know, it's-
The gates and the school roof project.
Yeah, so that's why it has to go through us too.
Right, I'm thinking what would be an undesirable situation is if we get within X number of days. And our attorney says, oh, you didn't get the vote from the Board of Finance, oops. That you're gonna have to go back, now you gotta set the timetable back for that, so let's just do this now.
I
mean,
do
not at
want
this
to point
meeting,
out that
Let's
we
do a
worked
special.
directly with the bond council the
Yeah.
last couple days.
Okay.
Discussing, making sure that we did everything,
Okay.
and they never said anything about board
No.
finance. So we were going through the checklist,
They
not
might-
that it's not something we should do, but we were
Yeah.
trying to make sure we were doing everything properly.
Yeah.
Going through the appropriate channels to
Okay.
make sure we did everything the way we were supposed to.
Did you ask them specifically if Board of Finance?
Oh, I didn't ask them that, but
Right,
they
right.
just, it was never referenced.
I would say to cover yourself,
Mhm.
ask them and ask our town attorney. And then if they both say, no, you definitely don't need it, then I think legally you're okay. But I still
doubt
think it's
that.
politically, I think it's a good idea to have the Board of Finance just do a special.
Mhm.
I can't imagine, well, I can't speak for what someone may vote, but this seems like a pretty necessary project.
Right.
So you're probably pretty safe on this one, but just to cover yourself,
Mhm.
just to cover
We
yourself.
don't even know the amount.
No, there's an estimated amount.
Yeah, 13.
I know, but that's the
Right.
first time I'm
Right.
hearing.
Right.
Yes, it's no different than any other expenditure.
And
really.
not only that, I'm hoping that all excess expenditures are included, so that amount of money that's being approved is gonna cover the
Full
grant,
cost of the project.
plus the legal expenses, plus the bonding
Right.
expenses.
Yep.
Because I don't want to
Have the
be
same
there in
situation.
another year
Right,
appropriating 75,000 because it was neglected to
Is it
put in.
enough? Right. We can easily have a special, that's no problem. And it can just be, well. I shouldn't say it can be by Zoom because I think there are members here who prefer to meet in person.
Mhm.
Okay. But I'm
Hybrid.
flexible in the next week. I could do a special. no
If
problem.
we could give, potentially a Wednesday meeting,
Sure.
that would give me time
Sure.
to discuss the whole,
Are you talking next Wednesday?
this coming Wednesday,
The
the 21st, potentially,
And then what time?
whatever works for you guys.
All right, I want to make sure I get it right in my calendar this time.
Yeah. that's something. Oh,
Buses. What's this?
We have a bus contract subcommittee meeting
What time?
at 6.
Okay.
We get together before that? It's gonna be a short meeting, I suspect.
we can
I'll
just,
get right after.
we could run it Zoom, I can run the Zoom here like I've
Okay.
done in the past, and everybody else could zoom in.
Yes. So
5
is
o'clock?
5 o'clock? Is that what people are thinking?
I'll be Zoom if you do 5 o'clock.
Okay.
but I can still make it.
I might be Zoom
Will
myself.
you not make it, Rob?
Well, I'll probably Zoom because I don't, we're busy.
Oh, yeah.
I can do Zoom
You
though.
can
I'll
still
make
do it?
Zoom.
Okay,
I
Oh,
thought you were
so-
saying you couldn't make it at.
I'll just probably be in my Jeep in the parking lot. That's all.
Okay.
that's right. I actually, I might be in a vehicle too.
Steve or Rob?
I can make it, no doubt.
I should be,
What was that, Steve?
I should be able to make it.
Okay. All right, so I'm gonna put Wednesday, the 21st, 5 p.m.
And this is the official location, right?
Could I suggest that they notice, just say that we're to discuss the topic and take action? Sometimes we put dollar values in the notice, and I'd hate to have something too restrictive and something changes and we have to have another special meeting.
I would object to that.
Is it possible to put a dollar amount that's
Sure.
sufficient enough that we can say up to?
Mhm.
What do you think, Rob? Rob
Sure,
Williams?
sure, that would work too. I just, yeah, it doesn't need to be totally open-ended, but I just hate to have us, not be able to act on it over a technicality and it's not a material movement in the money, right? So I'd put a not to exceed type of approach and
Not to exceed.
And Bill, can you break out the expenses, the bonding expense, the amount, the bonding expense, legal expenses?
Yep.
Or any other expenses that we anticipate that bond counsel says should be there.
Now, these are on the roof also, right? They're on the roof. HVAC systems are on the roof too.
We used ARP money to have a full assessment of the HVAC system. It's not, a lot of it's on the roof, but a lot of it has to do with boilers and other components, and then the whole mechanical system, having it on one platform. It's now on, I don't know, 3 or 4. Some very antiquated that probably only Bill Birch knows how to run. So at this point, that's a lot of the thrust of the proposal. I don't have a copy of that with me, but I can send it out to you. From that what Bill and John Rice went over last night, the HF Lens assessment of the facility, so you can take a look at that. We did have that completed, so. And you know that the grant opportunity is $150 million that the state has set aside for this project. There have been 130 districts who have applied for the money, so it's highly competitive. I'm not even sure, right, at this time, but we had a deadline. They gave us a very short window, which I assumed would kind of cut out a lot of districts. We were well ahead of things because we knew we were doing an HVAC assessment. But what I found out is that we were all holding our cards close to our chest, right? That we're all many of us were submitting for that same pot of money. So we won't know until the end of February, early March, if we're even in the running. But you have to have
So-
everything approved first.
Pending approval in that resolution, it'll be
Right.
pending approval of whichever state agency is in control of this grant.
Yeah, it's the Office of Construction that the grant is going through.
So the question I have is, instead
Include
of,
that in up
Sorry.
the amount up to
Yeah.
pending approval of the appropriate agency for.
Go ahead, Ron.
so my question is if it passes referendum and they don't get the grant, does the project still go forward? I guess that's my question.
So I think that's what.
That's why I just
Yeah, okay.
added
Oh, I'm sorry.
pending approval.
We
of
just
that.
Yeah.
make sure resolution,
Yeah.
such that it wouldn't.
Okay,
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, you know, it doesn't-
If that wording wasn't there, then we'd be in for the whole amount
Right.
without the reimbursement.
because I think that's how the gate one had to be. You didn't have a choice. That had to be that way.
Yep.
The gates would have got done either way, even if they didn't get the grant.
I think they're working on that reimbursement as we speak. I think Bill just filed all that paperwork.
COVID happened, so that whole thing got pushed back to,
It did.
there was a deadline, but I'm sure nobody had to meet it.
And it's slow coming back, he said, this go around, where before it used to turn around quickly, it's turning around slowly.
That was a period of time that everything was up in the air.
All right, so technically, this was still under the selectmen's update.
Yes.
Any other questions related to this HVAC topic? Any other questions for the first selectman? Thank you, Amy. So we'll move on to school district update, superintendent of schools, Melinda Smith. Welcome, Melinda.
Well, happy holidays, everyone, and from the members of the Board of Education, we wish you a happy holiday season. First of all, I want to thank you, Amy, for coming to the middle school winter concert. It's always nice to see town representation at our holiday events. Unfortunately, we are canceling tomorrow's Marriott Fisher concert. We have a lot of students ill. We don't think it's a hot idea to actually ruin everybody's holiday. But we've been sending a lot of students home with fevers, and there was about 40 students out in that school today sick. So we think it's just prudent that we cancel that and then hold something, after the first of the year, after the germs kind of dissipate. Well, first, I'd like to talk a little bit about our playground. If you recall, last spring, we had to close down the Marriott Fisher Playground because the apparatus there did not meet code. There was an accident at that playground. And then we wanted to make sure we had that area assessed. What we found out was that the playground didn't meet code. We didn't have the funding to repair the playground, so we closed it down. That is the only playground that the school department, the rec department, and the community uses. So Marriott Fisher PTO really started to look at the playground, and their ultimate goal is to raise enough funds to put a brand new ADA compliant playground in another section. But my goal, and you know, it takes a long time to raise that kind of funding. I've done it before in other districts, and it takes several years to raise that money. However, we want to open that playground. And so we've been looking at some grant funding to do so. I'm really happy to report it's about 51,000, 52,000 just to repair the current apparatus. It is not ADA compliant, but it's still grandfathered in. So we can upgrade it and we can repair it and we can open it. So what we're looking for is some grant funding for that. So I'm happy to report that thank you, Amy. When I was invited to join Amy on WINY, the conversation about the playground came up. And one of our former students, who is now a member of Verizon family, heard me on the radio. And she said she'd be willing to sponsor a community grant from Verizon. So she gave me the grant. I applied for the grant. And I found out yesterday we're getting $10,000. So we're really happy about that. In turn, we've also applied for a $50,000 T-Mobile grant. We haven't heard about that yet, and a $5,000 Walmart community grant. If we're successful, we should, and we hope, raise enough money to at least get the broken playground repaired, opened up for the community to use, and then Marriott Fisher PTO can move on and raise funding for the new ADA compliant playground. So a lot of that work is underway, and that's good news because $10,000, they are going to send a check directly to the Marriott Fisher PTO because of the way they have to donate their funds. But in turn, they'll return it to the school department and we can start building up our coffers to pay for that. So I'm happy about it. So that was great. That's a community member who heard us in the community, heard a need, and called me up and said, hey, I can sponsor a grant for you. And I just thought it was great. And, you know, that's just going on winning with you, and somebody heard it. So it was good news. Our enrollment right now is at 900. Last month it was 901. Marriott Fisher has 391 students. That's an additional student from last month. Thompson Middle School has 286 students, and they've been holding steady with that number for the last several months. Turtle Rock Memorial High School has 2 students down. They're down to 221. And the reason they have 2 students down is because we found out they weren't residents of the town of Thompson and we moved them out. So it's not that, you know, we lost students. We actually found out that they were not residents. So we had to make that move. Currently, we have 25 out of district students. According to Bill's report to the Board of Ed, our year-to-date spending is at 37% of the budget. That's pretty on par with last year. Our projected spending is 97% to the end of the year. But here's the bad news, and spending deficit before excess costs. So that's, you know, we get between 300 and 350,000 for excess costs. We're over in tuition by 454,000. Contracted services are over by 392,000, and our transportation are over by 286,000. Now, we froze the budget in September because we obviously need to control costs. And that's what we do every year, right? It's usually the other budget lines that cover the over expenditures in special education. However, we're running into a bit of a problem this year because we're starting to look at things like paper, which last year, and we budgeted $28 a case, it is now $48 a case. Toilet paper, which we budgeted for $26 a case, is $46 a case. And our fuel is gonna cost us an additional $69,000 this year. So I am very anxious about not being able to use those other budget lines that we froze to cover all those expenses. So I am very concerned about it, and I just want to bring it to everybody's attention. That typically that's what we do. We freeze the budget, those other budgets, we take that money and we cover as much special ed deficit as we can. These other expenses, and we're keeping an eye on it, like paper. We put out an all call for our teachers to conserve paper, so that maybe we're not going to use as much paper. And so we're trying to make some conservation efforts. In the area of toilet paper, probably not so much. But you know, we're keeping a close eye on it, but I just want you to know where we stand right now. The Board of Ed is well aware of that. And we're doing everything we can to cut you know, measures in special ed, but some things are just federal law and we can't do anything about it. So right now, I just wanted to let you know that that's where we're at. And hopefully things will get a little better. Maybe we did lock in for fuel oil for next year. And I think that was a good move considering what's been happening in the market. So we're happy about that. And we've actually dropped, you know, a couple of degrees of heat so that we can conserve some fuel at the district level. Hopefully we're going to be able to end the year at least level funded, but I just say right now, special ed is over and there's little wiggle room in the other expense line. So I just needed to let you know that.
Questions for the superintendent? Go ahead, Dave.
With regard to paper, all kinds, do you go out for bid as
Yeah.
a school district?
So we are going to go out to bid next year. We went out to bid in a while because we were buying our paper through a consortium.
Yeah, well,
Um,
let me just stop you there, because when I was there, and granted, it was a few years ago,
EastCon, yeah.
my bid was less than EastCon, and I received permission to buy on my bid for the middle school. Now, I don't buy this EastCon bid.
Well, we
I
don't-
think you're better off bidding as a Thompson School Department. And I don't, according to what Bill has shared with me, do you have say, a purchase order out for 100 cases or 200 cases of duplicated paper of what? You do have a purchase order out to a particular company?
Well, we concentrate our buying with,
WB
I
Mason,
think it's WB Mason,
because of the discount
Well,
that they give.
right,
Yeah,
exactly. But no, there wasn't a formal bid that was put out.
Yeah, but did you order in that amount and
We-
they are filling it on an as needed basis? Or are you in a position to bid, say, or offer a bid for the rest of the year as of January 1, 15th or whatever?
I think what we've run into is that, believe it or not, we can only order 10 cases at a time.
That's through Mason,
Right, yes.
but
because
there are
they-
other companies.
Yeah, definitely.
There
I
are.
think the effort has been to concentrate the purchasing there because we do get some discounts because of the volume that we buy.
yes.
The problem this year, in addition to the price increases, has been its supply chain side. I mean, Eileen Deary in the AP department up at the school actually she does the buying for the district for all the schools. She actually has to buy 10 cases at a time because she can't get more than that. They won't ship her more than that at any given time. So that 10 cases comes in and then it gets farmed out to whoever needs it. That's how it's happened now, but going out to bid is definitely something we could.
We're gonna do that with custodial supplies this year as well.
Well, we did
Yeah.
that. I saved significant amounts of money by bidding through, and this was just middle school back, this was not district wide. Because the other principals didn't do it.
Yeah, we are looking at that through budget, especially custodial supplies, because they've gone up so much. So, yeah. Thank you for that advice.
Any other questions for the superintendent? Questions? Melinda, did you say that special ed is over by 354,000? Was it, what was the numbers again? Was it three five
So
four?
I'll give you those numbers again. So
Special-
tuition is over by out of state, out of district tuition, 454,000.
So 454. So is it, should I call that in my notes, special education, or should I specifically call it tuition?
That's just
Special
tuition.
education out of district tuition.
Okay, hold on.
And then
Out of district.
another area to support students that, so they don't go out of district. We contract with a variety of service providers, and that's another 392,000 over budget. And then transportation is over 286,000. And that's all before the excess costs that we get reimbursed from the state, so that number will go down. And
So,
it'll go down because we froze the budget, but I just am leery about, hearing that our paper's costing us double and our
Sure.
toilet paper is costing us double.
so special education, out of district tuition is over by 454. Transportation is over by 286. And then come again, what do I call that? The one for
Special
392?
services.
Contracted services.
Contracted services. Hold on, contracted services.
Was
I
it
just wanna make
292
sure,
or
right?
392?
392.
It was 392.
And Aaron, those are all components of pupil services or
Yeah.
special ed.
That's right, and so there's gonna be some level of reimbursement for some of these costs from the state of Connecticut later on this fiscal year. It just won't cover all of them.
So we're looking like $750,000.
Well, so I just wonder, what is the typical ratio of reimbursement from the state on these types
So,
of
so
costs?
last year, our number was 384, if I remember correctly.
384 was what, the
Was
reimbursement amount?
reimbursed. Yes.
And were is it a function of the overage, or is it just a function of you're Thompson, you have X number of students, you get X number of people, you get X?
No, so it's more complicated than that. So there's a threshold, and I don't know what the threshold is for each student, but you have to spend around, so let's just use a round number. $90,000 the Board of Ed is responsible to pay for a student. And if an out of district student's tuition is 100,000 and then transportation is another 65, then you get 3/4 of the reimbursement after the $90,000. So, and that's by student, by expenses, so it's not like clean cut, you can say we're gonna get this amount of money, but last year it was about 384,000 that came back. To the town, or the Board of Ed.
And were last year's overages reasonably comparable to what we're seeing this year, or are these year's overages reasonably higher than what we saw last year?
I think we're running a little ahead of last year, and I
Okay.
think that has to do, definitely not my area of expertise here, but I think it has to do with new students coming into the district.
Correct.
A couple in particular who are unfortunately maybe on the higher end of the need scale.
We have a high percentage, we're at 23% special ed, almost a quarter of our kids get special education services. So 25 of them are not on site. But for the students that are on site, many of them might need a behavior therapist, paraprofessional, a nurse. And so we keep them home because that's the least restrictive environment and that's federal law. However, there are expenses with that. At the end of the day, we want to do the right thing for the child. And then after that, we try to control costs that way. And it's better for the child to stay home at Thompson Public Schools than to go to an out of district placement.
We actually have had some modest success with students migrating back to the gen ed population. I think, didn't we just have?
Just had
students
two. We just had two. So we have 15 students in the Bradley program. That saves us a ton of money. Remember, there's no transportation costs and the tuition is a fraction of an out of district placement,
Okay.
teetering around 45,000 per student. But we've had two of those students actually transition back into gen ed. So saving obviously that tuition money. But as soon as we have that success, it just seems somebody else moves into town.
Right. Thank you. And to Dave's point, if, we add up the 454, the 392, the 286, and we just go with last year's reimbursement of 384, we're basically looking at $750,000.
which is just a touch higher than where we were this past year.
This may seem like a stupid question, but what is a Board of Education and a Board of Finance and a Board of Selectmen to do? It just seems like you've got the federal and the state just saying, I mean, it's unfunded mandates. It's, you will do this, and we don't, pardon my use of language, but the federal and the state says, we don't give a damn what you decided to budget for your town and your operations for the coming fiscal year. You decide you're gonna do X, Y, and Z. And we really don't care how much it's gonna cost. You're gonna figure that out, get out your calculator. And then you let us know how bad the damage is. And then if we feel like it, we'll give you some money and we'll make the formulas complicated enough that you can't even do a good job, right? It's impossible to explain to the average person how it's calculated. It's so complicated. And so you'll get some money, but whatever you don't get, too bad. You figure it out. That's your problem. It just, what is a Board of Finance and a Board of Education and Board of Selectmen to do other than just take it, right? Other than just to get run over every single year. It's just maddening.
It is maddening, and you know, every single superintendent will tell you the same thing. You can never, I've been doing this for 40 years. You can never appropriately budget for special education. It doesn't matter. I've never seen a school district where we haven't had to freeze the budget to take other lines to cover the overage in special ed. 40 years of my career watching that happen. It's the right thing to do for children. And so that's the most important thing. We want to make sure that they have access to a curriculum so that they can progress. However, some things are just ridiculously expensive. And Chris has done an outstanding job. First of all, bringing in the Bradley program, which has certainly offset a lot of unnecessary costs. Plus, the program is better to have our students on site.
If I could jump just for a second, that the thing that nobody talks about with that particular program too. Every month I look at I approve the bills for transportation. The Bradley program just eliminates the transportation for those folks. On some of these kids, the transportation rivals the tuition cost. Because the schools may be, I don't want to be dramatic and say on the other side of the state, but they're not close. So these tuition costs can almost be equal to the tuition cost, the transportation costs. Can be close to the tuition costs for these kids.
Well, especially if you have one child on a van going to a certain school, there's 65,000 a year for that one van. We've done some interesting things by trying to couple up and reduce the number of vans on the road. He's taken off at least half of those vans since he's been here. And we've done some cost share with other districts where we're trying to couple kids up on a bus, right, from a group of districts, and then we all split the fee for the bus. We just put out another bus contract, and the Board of Ed will be looking at those two bids next week. You know, it's everything, but we've done our best, I believe, to control those costs, and we continue to do so. It's just that we can't control who enrolls, and that is the biggest issue. But we can control residency. And we do that. And, you know, I want you to know that every single student that's in special education have had their residency checked. And if a student does move to town and they do need an out-of-district placement, before anything happens, we make sure that child lives there. So Greg or somebody on his team is doing a home visit to make sure that that's the place of residency. So, and we keep checking.
Go ahead.
So even with the bus contracts and everything, the special education transportation costs, I'm sure you try to factor in a bid. You know, you have 10 out of district students. Okay, so we're gonna need 10 buses in this agreement, and then you end up getting 15. So I'm sure that happens too, right?
All
And
the time.
it's not even in the contract. So then you're at the mercy of the bus company or whoever else too, because they can just charge you what they're gonna charge you.
They usually do it per mile or per hour kind of thing, Rob.
Yeah, but I'm sure it's more than what the contract the normal contract would have been, right, a cost.
Well, no, it's usually pretty stable. I mean, if they add it in, we know it's gonna cost us. So it's pretty stable and and Steve's right, there is a price per mile, so
Okay.
that's standard in the contract.
So here I'll follow along with another stupid question, which is, so let's say we come to the end of the fiscal year and we are over by $750,000. Right? Because we got some money back from the state, but not enough because they don't really care. It's an unfunded mandate. Too bad, you figure it out. So then what? Would we do in order to balance the books, do we have to take money from our surplus? Is that how that works? So then basically, let's just call it what it is, right? In order for us to maintain a healthy bond rating, we need to maintain a reasonable surplus. So that means we have to tuck away a certain amount of money, which means if our townspeople see the proposed mill rate go up by some drastic amount, or at least in their opinion, a drastic amount, they'll just come out and they'll vote it down. And then we'll put it back out again and they'll vote it down again, and then we'll put it back out and they'll vote it down again. And then finally they'll approve something that where we, after parting with some of the surplus that we didn't want to part with to cover the unfunded mandates that were forced upon us. In order for us to put money back into surplus enough so that we have a healthy surplus, basically what we're doing is we're now pulling from what otherwise be investments in program, right? So once again, another fiscal year where we lowball investments in program, particularly in things like special ed, right? Because the townspeople will only tolerate so much, and it just goes round and round and round.
And the other thing, your bonding rate goes up and up.
Meaning the interest rate that you would pay,
Because.
if your
you're-
surplus keeps going down and down, then next time you go to bond, then Moody's comes in and they say,
Yep.
sorry, but you gotta pay higher interest. Not that the Fed isn't already making us pay higher interest anyways, even if you had a good bond rating. So it just goes round and round. And so each year, boards of finance have no choice but to just keep swiping away at programs. And sort of underfunding, because at least that's enough to get the
Well-
townspeople to vote for it. And then you come back around and then the unfunded mandates make you take money from surplus and then.
Well,
you go
I
back.
don't agree with the idea of underfunding.
Right, what I'm saying
We
is
should be
townspeople will only accept
Cutting
so much.
back and not
Fair enough.
underfunding.
Right, but I'm just saying the townspeople will only accept so much.
That's correct.
They'll only accept so much. And if the unfunded mandates keep forcing us to take money from surplus, then that money's gotta come from somewhere. If the townspeople are not gonna pay for it with increased taxes, that means it comes away from programs.
Now,
And so I guess I shouldn't assume that taking away from programs means that we're necessarily underfunding programs, but it does mean that we're taking away from programs. Go ahead.
And know that I'm building my 7th budget on the Board of Ed, and I have reduced and cut everything I know to reduce and cut out of that budget. We're at a bare bones for administrators. I've cut back on just about everything. I don't even know where to go next. And that is because of that cycle every year, right? So then we have to go back and we have to look at the district as a whole. And when I first came, sure, there were things that we could move around and the Board of Ed allowed for that. Remember that the Board of Ed also absorbed all of the costs of transportation, where before the town was picking up buses. Now that's all on the Board of Ed's budget. So with that constraint, and then I have reduced a lot of staff up there. And the reason that we have some staffing now is because we've had grant funding and some of those positions are critical mental health providers. So this year I've told the Board of Ed, and I can say it here, it's going to probably be the most challenging budget that we put together. Probably the most challenging budget to get the public around.
Bill, you had something you wanted to say?
if I could just clarify your example a little bit, you could draw a parallel with this past year. Now, we were around 7 or just over 700,000 in special ed. That overage was offset from other lines down to around 211,000. So I would hope, given the fact that we froze the budget, that hopefully we could do the same. However, last year we didn't have as such a problem with fuel, with health insurance, which unfortunately came in 2% higher, I believe, than we budgeted. I remember right. Now that percentage increase, when we did the budget, we went out to the brokers and asked them for the increase. In the time between when we did the budget and when it actually came home to roost, it had come up another 2%. So you're going out there and you're doing your darndest to get a good number.
Mhm.
And same thing happened with fuel. So, we certainly, we hope that the overage won't be the 700,000. It'll be offset by other lines. But given the headwind of the other expense increases, it may not be to the extent it was this year.
Right, Dave, you have a thought?
Yeah, I have a
Go ahead.
question. If I recall correctly, I think the numbers that you initially gave us was that expenditures to this point were 37%, with a projected 97%
The
for the year.
Right, 37, so to clarify that point, the 37% is so the way the financial reports work at the school, we show the actual expenditures to date.
Mhm.
Then we layer in the encumbrances. The 37 is the actual expenditures to date. The encumbrance, the 37 plus the encumbrances gets us to the 97. It gets us to a projected spend for the full year, which is that 97%.
Does that include special ed?
So that includes special ed, yes.
Thank
Yes.
you.
So the other lines at this point, and I think really driven probably by lower encumbrances because of the budget
Mhm,
freeze, has already, in theory, that projection is not perfect
Oh, I
because
understand.
even though the folks at the school, and specifically the folks in special ed, do a great job of encumbering what they think will be necessary. None of that's perfect. I mean, I think of Bill Birch's world, he was on the roof at 6:30 the other morning fixing another boiler. I'm sure he didn't have that encumbered.
No, but our special ed director is more than willing if there's members of the Board of Finance that want to, just better understand.
No, I understand it completely. I'm just trying to put the numbers together.
Yeah, right now that is in the
I
97.
dealt with it as well.
Any other questions for the superintendent?
Just as a recap, if I might, we're saying we need $750,000 more for various aspects of special education. You're cutting other programs by $750,000 to make the end of the year budget expected to come in basically on target?
Right, essentially, yes, and what that really is that things that were budgeted are just not happening, or purchases that were planned were put on the back burner. And that's really, it's the same thing that happened this past year.
It's happened every year, as far back as I can remember,
Right,
Bill.
yeah, so,
Happened every year I've been here.
yeah.
To me, that sounds like a lot of money. It sounds like got to be a lot of programs. I assume none of those programs were wasteful. Maybe next time you could tell us what you're having to do. It would help me understand how dire this is.
We could come up with some examples of things that.
Right.
Yeah, I don't want to put you on the spot now. I got to think about it a little bit. I understand that, but boy, that's a lot of money to cut, and to be able to do it surprises me, quite frankly.
Anything else? Before we move on? Thank you, Maureen. Thank you for the work that you do up there. I appreciate it. I think we all appreciate it. It's obviously not an easy task.
And we all worry about the bottom line,
course.
because we all understand the dilemma we have.
We're all in this together.
Yeah.
Financial report from Bill Steglitz.
Great. So revenues now are slightly ahead of, I guess, what you would call the run rate at 57% of budget. That's really benefited from strong current tax collections, which are actually at 59% of budget for the year. I'm keeping my fingers crossed for the next round of property tax bills that go out, because as you know, everyone is facing this. A lot of the same cost pressures that the school is facing are facing our citizens. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed that performance continues to be strong, but I'm definitely keeping my fingers crossed there. Motor vehicle supplement will be, actually, I think was billed in December or January, it's about to be. On the state and federal grant side, on the town side, we received our grant in lieu of taxes. Payment of 15.5. That's on time and right on budget, which is nice to see. Local revenue, 588,000, 52% of the budget. That's been helped by continued strong investment earnings. Those interest rates you referenced earlier are helping us to at 53,000 investment income, which is great.
At least there's some upside.
Yeah, right. On the expense side, there's really not much new to report there from last month, although there were a couple of questions around the cemetery expense line.
Mhm.
We actually did receive that grant income that we were hoping to receive. It's about $3,000, so that's going to offset those higher cemetery expenses.
So we won't see that expense next
Right,
month.
that'll be reclassed against the grant
Okay.
money, so that will come out of what is actually a DPW cemetery line.
Mhm.
Which was, it was funny, it happened just a couple days after we had the conversation,
Mhm.
so. That worked out well. The other three items there we've talked about in the past. Balance sheet, cash is down 1.9 from last month. That's the normal, payment of bills throughout the year. But cash is higher than last year by 1.5 million. Fund balance is up. It's currently 3.7 million, up 1.8 from year end. Of course, that just reflects the fact that we collect our taxes up front and pay the bills as we go. So that'll come down. I have added back in the unassigned surplus schedule. I hadn't realized there was a schedule 4 that had dropped off sometime, between when Orla left and when I started. So I took a look at how we prepared it historically, and I modified the approach a little bit. In essence, the schedule rolls forward unassigned fund balance consistently with how Schedule 4 has shown it in the past. It assumes a break even on budget results. And then the adjustments that get layered in are any appropriations this board has made out of unassigned fund balance. And then adds in expected reimbursements from grants. For example, the one that I did include is the reimbursement on the security grant project at the school. I tend to lean towards the conservative side when I'm making projections. So I did not include the pending reimbursement on the school roof because I don't think it'll happen in fiscal 2023, just based on conversations with Bill Birch and how that process has slowed down. So I left that off the roll forward, and I also excluded if you remember last month, we had 122,000 in revenue sharing that came in from the state that was unbudgeted revenue. Some folks, when putting this together, would say, you could probably put that in there, but I really think we're going to need that 122 to if we're going to assume a zero budget on this analysis, I think we're going to need that 122 to get there.
Yeah, but shouldn't it be in here?
Um,
Where is it?
The 122, well, because the assumption is that we would have a zero impact, a zero budget. But once again, I'm just going back to how this has been historically prepared. You wouldn't include, you would, that adjustment would be a zero here. Because you're trying to show. You're trying to make the assumption that it's a zero-based budget. Otherwise, you're projecting. I mean, and it certainly could be done that you could project where you think you're going to be, but I would be loath to ever say we're going to have a very strong year. And
that money is, once again, when we prepare and put forth a budget, we are talking about expenses.
right,
We're not talking about revenue.
exactly.
And it's always been my understanding that revenue that comes into the town that's unassigned
Yep.
goes into this account.
And it would, but what I'm saying, what I'm countering with on that is. That we will probably have expenses because this schedule should show the net impact of all the revenues and all of the expenses in the general fund.
I disagree with you.
But well, that's a definitional difference on what we're trying to do in rolling forward on assigned fund balance. If we can get together and have a conversation about what you want the analysis to show, and then I can craft the schedule to show that, but I want to make sure that we define it very clearly when it's presented.
Well, I don't know how others feel, but we will continue to be in disagreement.
Well, I'm definitely, it's not a matter of disagreement, it's a matter of. If we're rolling forward unassigned fund balance, and I think, I guess maybe what we could change is that assumption. Of a zero balance, of a zero budget impact. Once again, I formulated this analysis by going back to the historical, how it'd been done in the past.
Well,
And that's kind of how it was done and the. Once again, me being just sort of naturally conservative,
No, I understand what
I
you're
was-
saying, Bill.
yeah,
I just-
I didn't want to gild it any more than necessary at all. And to the point, and actually to drive that home even further, the bottom two lines of this schedule. The second to the last line shows the projected fund balance, unassigned fund balance, including that school grant project reimbursement. And then I dropped another line in there showing it if it doesn't hit, because I don't know when that's coming in. I can't promise you that that's gonna come in before June 30th. So at least the board would see the look before and after. That's why it's in there.
And the school roof's a large amount of money, right? That's a big amount.
This one is $376,000.
No,
Right.
I hear you, Bill,
Yeah.
but there are, there are revenue classifications
Yep,
which will be plus and or minus as
Sure.
the year progresses.
right.
And yes, money goes in this one and goes in that one
Mhm,
because the projection was incorrect.
right.
This is not a budget classification in terms of revenue. As I look at it,
Mhm.
therefore, in my mind, it belongs in the undesignated fund or
The-
unassigned.
The 122,
Any, well,
Yeah.
yeah,
any
Yeah.
extra revenue, if you will.
but you don't have that yet, and you.
Right.
That's why it's not listed,
Right.
but you're also basing it on a zero budget,
Right,
which
Right.
other. Say revenue line items. Under those circumstances, you get. Well, like you mentioned tonight, the pilot fund coming in at 15,000, well, that might
Right.
end up at the year 16,500.
right,
And that would remain in revenue because it was a projected revenue budget item.
sure.
This. And the
That
one we're talking
122.
about, the 120, is
Was
not a
not.
projected revenue item.
Well, that's why I also wanted to mention it in my comments, frankly.
No, I
because-
understand.
And I left it out to be conservative.
Yeah.
But as long, I want to be transparent,
Yeah.
because
No,
this,
that's
this
good.
schedule's a little. If you probably can't tell, I didn't like how we historically presented it, so I tweaked it a bit and just wanted to be transparent about how I think.
That's a good thing.
I don't know, can you put tweaked in the minutes, Dottie? So anyway, that's the additional.
You reassign functions.
Right, right. On other items I wanted to update the board on, audit update, King was here last week, Wednesday through Friday. Field work went pretty well. They really, obviously, that's not when the audit gets completed, but they got through the vast majority of what they actually needed to be here to do. Those guys are actually down in Brooklyn this week doing their audit. So we, as they were leaving, I sat down with Marshall Dean, who runs the account or runs the engagement for us. And we drew up an open item list. I've continued to chip away at getting those things turned around for him. I've also got Guy helping out on some of the schedules too, so we can get those to them. At this point, I would expect that we would extend past December because we're obviously very close to the holidays. But the auditors, seem okay with that. They seemed pretty happy with the information we provided. I beat myself up on this because I used to run audits for a living and, as I told maybe before, it didn't go as well as I wanted it to go. But it's a work in process and we're still chipping away at it.
Can I interject though?
Sure.
So when I met with Marshall, he told me to lay off Bill. Stop being so hard on him. No, but what he told me was, what was great about working with Bill is because he's a CPA, he has the accounting mind.
Yes.
And Bill was doing everything he can to follow best practices. And that's what was slowing some things down because Bill was being so diligent. And I just wanted to just say that publicly. So thank you, Bill.
I just gotta do it faster.
No,
No, we can play off you.
no, the realization, Bill, that you're doing an excellent job.
Yes.
It's
Thank
Because
just-
you're auditing yourself.
Right.
That's why.
It's kind of-
That's the reality of it.
Into my mentality, it goes back to even the conservatives and this on that schedule forward, yeah, but anyway, we're working away on that. We sent off 4 or 5 things to them today. They have a portal where we upload files to them. I tell you, they're a busy group right now because, here we are. We weren't last in line. I mean, and it was Brooklyn and there was one other town they were still going to, if I remember correctly. And I will say, I was impressed with the professionalism of the whole team, of 3 staff members who were here, and then actually, Chris King came out for a day too. To have the partner on site was great to see. They've been very professional. The communication channels, knock on wood, have been wide open, so that's great to see. It's kind of funny walking into an audit room and not being the auditor. It's different, but yeah, it's also eye-opening to be on the other side too. Budget update. Templates have been sent out at both the town. Thank you, Amy, through ClearGov and at the school. A matter of fact, Melinda and I, if you look at our calendars, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of next week, we're meeting with all the administrators, Bill Birch in facilities, Heather in technology. And we're going through the budget submission templates that they've given us, and that'll feed into building the budget for next year. We're developing, I haven't had a chance to tell you this, Melinda, we're developing some spreadsheets that hopefully will allow us to more accurately and quickly and more flexibly do payroll budgeting by
Oh, that's
department.
good.
So hopefully that'll work out well. We'll see how that goes. So that's definitely in flight, and here we go again with the budget. A heads up here, nothing to act on at the moment, but coming out of last night's building committee, they were sort of racking their brains collectively to figure out where we could find funding for the door
The
assessment
security
project,
assessment that
security
needs to be
assessment
done.
project at the school. Under the building committee's purview, they have a number of projects that each have their own little balance sheet. And some of them at this point have aged. One of them in particular was the oil spill, one of the oil spill projects that had a remaining balance of around $39,000 that no one had wanted to touch because these oil spill projects seem to have a long tail. At this point, in talking to Bill, it seemed like that particular one, that might be an area that the board will be approached to consider freeing up from that project and redeploying to fund the DORA, the security assessment program at the school. It's just a thought. It was, building committee sitting around a table and just brainstorming about how they could get that funded without an impact on the budget. Because although we were able to find money to do the assessment for HVAC out of the ARPA funds, that well is dry. And unfortunately, these assessments they're just not cheap, especially when you've got
64 doors that need to be assessed. And we want to make sure that we have a professional look at them.
and that's it. That was a long report.
Questions for the finance director? Questions? Any questions from the Zoom?
No, none here. Nice report, Bill.
I'm all set, thank you.
Go ahead, Steve.
I'm all set, thank you very much.
Bill, I was gonna ask, based on the timeline that the audit is making as of today, December 15. What is your sense of, is there a possibility of doing the audit report, right? Because the auditor either comes in person or on the Zoom and gives the report, and then we ask questions, yada, yada. Doing that like in time for the February Board of Finance meeting. And the reason I ask is because if we do the audit report after March 1st, it occupies what otherwise would be a budget workshop,
Right.
which has a domino effect.
That Amy and I have talked about this at length and along with Marshall too, when we've explained that constraint, and that's the goal that both sides are pulling towards, to have that done. I don't want to make any promises, but that's the goal.
I'm not gonna hold you to it, but as long as you and I are both thinking the same thing,
Yep.
that's great.
I remember being, because I think I had started to attend Board of Finance meetings in March of last year, and I
Yes.
remember being surprised that we were talking about the audit in March.
Right, because it occupies space.
Right, and given what, I mean, everybody's busy right there trying to get those budgets done, so, and really, that's where the focus of the committee needs to be at that point. So that's definitely the goal. And that's,
Thank you.
you know, one of the reasons why Guy is still around helping out with some of these schedules, because he can jump in and he can, you know, we can kick around a schedule and he can get it, he can grasp it very quickly, and he did it twice this afternoon. He was able to turn things around for them.
Great.
While I was handling other items,
Great,
because I have my own list. Paula has a piece of the list, the guy has a piece of the list, and I have a piece of the list.
thank you. Any other questions, anyone? All right, thank you, Bill. Turtle Fund update, Board of Trustees. If there's anyone here who wants to speak to that, they're certainly welcome to do so.
No, not much has changed there. I did look at the statement this morning from Weiss Hales and Hansky, and it was nice to see it was at least headed up. It's nowhere near a level where I would anticipate the trust being able to make any withdrawals, but at
Right.
least it wasn't going down. I think it was up 14 or 15,000 bucks on the month. So
That was prior to the close today.
That's right. I feel like for the next 12 to 18 months at least, it's gonna go like this. Yep. Thank you for that. For that update. If there's nothing else on Turtle Fund update, if we're ready to move on, then we would move to Board of Finance member comments. Any member of the Board of Finance have a comment? Any Board of Finance member comments? Go ahead, Steve.
Couple of numbers, 123. 20, 17. 123 is 123rd Army Navy game this past weekend. Navy score was 17, Army was 20.
That's what he's talking about.
Those are some good numbers, Steve.
Those are
Nice.
great numbers.
Yes. I can understand why you'd be proud of those numbers. That's fantastic.
And it was in overtime, where
Double.
Navy neglected to score from the 1 yard
I knew we
line.
were.
Double overtime, as a matter of fact.
whole line stand by Army.
Was Navy down to the 1
Oh, yeah.
and they didn't put it in?
They didn't kick the field goal,
Wow. Wow.
which wouldn't have made a difference because Army scored a touchdown.
That's a pretty exciting, yeah, that's a pretty exciting game though.
It was.
Wow. Any other Board of Finance member comments?
Yeah, Aaron, it's Rob. I had a question.
Go ahead.
We extended the hybrid meeting. Is there any expiration on that, or do we need to talk about that as a group? And I ask in that while I'm a proponent of being on site as much as I can, this allows, I think, some of us not to be absent and not to miss meetings. So do you recall where we stand on the extension, and can we make this, can we further extend it if need be?
I think we just said all of them were gonna be hybrid.
No, I think we said till April, and then we'd reevaluate it.
For the Board of Finance specifically, because I think it's
Yeah.
now state allows. Yeah, I just would have to look. for
Meaning
what
the state of
public
Connecticut allows
access.
hybrid meetings indefinitely?
Well, I'm
I
in
don't
support
know.
of keeping it hybrid because I know that, first of all, these guys go to Florida at some point. Yeah, and a lot of people are getting sick right now, as Melinda said. I mean, I have a couple of friends that are sick right now. My daughter had COVID maybe a week and a half ago. So it's still bouncing around. Of course, it was a flu that led into a test for COVID. So I think it was just the flu, but at least we can space ourselves out. If somebody's not feeling 100%, they can stay home and,
Right.
Keeps everybody safe. Yeah.
And with COVID, what is it? It's 5 days after you first test negative that before you can re-enter civilization, so.
Yeah, what
So that's
mass?
just, right, so that's just a function of how long your
It all-
ailment lasts.
Mhm.
So if it's, because different people have different lengths of ailment. So any one of us in the next few months could end up being at home for however long. And then I think about people in our community who have some mobility issues. Who otherwise would not be able to come here and hear how we're deliberating, what we're discussing. They can at least connect via Zoom during the budget season.
Right.
I kind of like the idea of having hybrid, like permanently.
Yeah,
for that
everybody,
reason.
everybody has different policies. When I had COVID, I was only out of work 5 days. Right back to work, no negative tests, nothing. Back to work, come back in, wear a mask for a
5
week
more days, yeah.
or whatever it is. And then I have a friend that has it now. And that his doctor told him today, they wanted a negative result before he went back to work, and he works for a town. He's a town employee somewhere. And the doctor told him he could test positive for 30 days. And, and they said 10 days out, go back to work anyway. So it's different wherever you are,
So it's a different world now than it was 3 years ago. The world has changed. I don't want to speak for the board in terms of, because I'm just one member, in terms of what we should do going forward, but I feel pretty comfortable with having hybrid meetings indefinitely, permanently. How does anybody else, it seems like Rob Man, you feel okay with that? Is everybody else okay with that?
I think it's a great idea. I mean, this helps citizens who have maybe single parent families, for example, who wouldn't be able to come because they have parental duties. So this gives them an opportunity to participate. Weather's bad, opportunity to participate. All sorts of good reasons why. Can't see much reason not to do it.
Yeah,
Long as there's a meeting I can attend, I do not object.
Go ahead, Rob Word.
Yeah, no, I support the hybrid. I'm down in Virginia. I move around a lot. I really prefer to be there. I enjoy the table and the work we do across the table, but this allows more of us to be more engaged. And like you said, Aaron, it also gives the community more access. So I don't see a downside across the board. I just think it enhances what we're trying to do, and I fully support it.
Larry, you okay with it?
Mhm.
You okay with it? Okay. I don't know if we're supposed to vote on this at some point. I don't know how this
I
works.
thought we had decided on April 1st to reevaluate,
Yeah. So April 1st, we could
or in
officially
March.
reevaluate or whatever, right?
We'll be going into budget season
Right.
prior to that.
throw it on an agenda.
We can throw it on an agenda and then vote on it.
Mhm.
It's okay with me. Okay, any other Board of Finance member comments? Anything else? Does someone want to make a motion to adjourn?
Rob Man, I'll make a motion.
Robin's got the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Larry's got the second. All in favor of adjourning signify by saying aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? That's 6-0. My cell phone says it's 8:14 PM. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you next month.
Happy
Good night,
holidays,
everyone.
Safe travels, Rob.
I'll see you in February.
Thank you.